Good afternoon, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session on my Rumination News Network channel. Thank you so much for joining as we are about to discuss a very important topical matter. Now, the United States has just issued a final warning to Nicolás Maduro. Leave power or face direct assault or direct intervention, direct strikes. Now, is Washington preparing a strike on Venezuelan soil? What does this mean for the Caribbean and Latin American region? In today's Vlogmas, and today is the beginning of Vlogmas update, we break down the geopolitical pressure, the U.S. strategy, Maduro's re-engineering, and his resolve to stand up to this mighty empire called the United States. This is the news Caribbean people need to hear, unfiltered and unafraid. Now, the title of this afternoon's program is U.S. Gives Maduro Final Warning, Leave or We Strike Venezuelan Soil. Now, this is what we're hearing coming out of the words of Washington, D.C., that the president, Donald Trump, is finally giving Nicolás Maduro an ultimatum that you need to leave. You need to leave Venezuela with your family, with your wife, and I think sons, and just get away, exile yourself from office, and let us take over. Or if you do not accede to our requests or to our demands, we are going to strike Venezuelan land. That is what we are seeing coming out of the newspapers today. Now, there are those of you who are the naysayers, the cynics, the cynical people who are out there, who are suggesting that there's not going to be any war. And now, I don't want any war. But the thing about it is that it's almost like a hurricane coming or a storm. And the forecasters have been saying it, year after year that the storm is coming. It doesn't come, so people let down their guard. And that is what I see many people doing. So when I spoke about yesterday that Trump also gave the command to shut down Venezuelan airspace, oh, I am here in Venezuela, or I'm seeing on the tarmac, and I'm seeing planes, landing and taking off. Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that that was not so. The fact of the matter is that it might not happen today or yesterday. It might happen tomorrow. We just don't know. And we ought not to take Washington's threat lightly. And I think what is happening to our world, particularly those of us who live in this neck of the mud, in the region, in the United States, and in the Americas per se, right? I think what has happened to us is that we have not really understood what war drums mean, what they imply. I don't think we understand it. I think we think that we're just living in this delusional world where everything is freedom. We rise or we protest and the government listens to us and then things go back to normal. And if you think that's the world you're living in, and then you follow the crowd. So anywhere the crowd is going, if 700 people are on the live, you're going to be on the live. If 30 people are on the live, you're not going to be on the live. Because wherever the crowd is, that is where you follow. That is the thinking of the large majority of our people. If truth be told, we have conditioned minds, conditioned brains. So if everybody's saying that the guy in Burkina Faso, that is Traore, is the new Black leader and he's going to lead us into a new age, into a new era, as it were, of Black freedom, that is what you believe, even though it might be far from the truth and far from the reality. That is what you think, okay? But you have to approach truth and you have to look at history very carefully. And what we see now is United States empire morphing into a new realm, as it were, into a new era. And this era is a more militarized one, a one which is not ashamed to bomb if it has to bomb, one which is not ashamed to unalive if it has to unalive, one which is ashamed to destroy cities, to demolish civilized cities if it has to do so. And read about the whole matter of the destruction of Iraq. And you must understand that where Iraq is located is the first human civilization, Babylon. And there are lots of artifacts, historical artifacts, in many of the institutions, the museums and the libraries, and Washington destroyed a lot of them, of human civilization, very sophisticated culture. So we have it, in our minds that Iraq, and we think of it as a far-flung country. But this was at the head of civilization in former times. Babylon, that is referred into the Bible many times. Okay? So when we think about the United States, we've got to think about it in light of previous empires. Now, in this, a book that also was written by Chalmers Johnson called Nemesis, and The Last Days of the American Republic by Chalmers Johnson, right? And he mentioned in this book a quotation that he also took from two people here. One was Jan Morris, and it came from The Heavens Command and Imperial Progress. It says here, war came naturally enough to the British after so much experience of it, and empire offered them a more or less perpetual battlefield. I repeat that. War came naturally enough to the British after so much experience of it. This was what they did every day. So it became just like the food, the staple that they eat. And empire offered them a more or less perpetual battlefield. Another quotation here by E.H. Carr in The 20 Years' Crisis, and it was published in 1939. The English-speaking peoples are past masters in the art of concealing their selfish national interests in the guise of the general good. I repeat that. And I hope the Trinidadians are listening, because they think that the United States is there to protect them and to shield them from Nicolás Maduro and all the attendant problems of that regime. That is what Trinidadians and some Tobagonians, I would say some Trinidadians do, but I think a large majority, I wouldn't say the large majority, but there are many Trinidadians, based on my observation, who seem to be siding with Kamala Harris-Vicessor. I can tell you that. The English-speaking peoples are past masters in the art of concealing their selfish national interests in the guise of the general good. This kind of hypocrisy is a special and characteristic peculiarity of the Anglo-Saxon mind, where they're telling you that they're doing everything that they're doing for the common good, which is coming out of the books of Roman Catholicism, right? They talk about doing things for the common good. So even when they were having the Inquisitions and the period of the Dark Ages, they were slaughtering Christians for the common good. If you did not agree with them, then in order to have unity, because that was what Roman Catholicism sought in the days, that we cannot have naysayers. We can't have critics of our religious ecclesiastical institution. We've got to have people who toe the line. And if they don't toe the line, let's remove them, and then peace will reign on the earth. Because if you have those who disagree, then you'll always have war, right? Then you'll always have war. And that is what the United States is doing at the moment. That we must have people who believe in our style of democracy. And if they don't believe in our brand of democracy, in which you have the neoliberal economic ideology, then they have to go, or they have to be utterly destroyed. And that is what is happening to Nicolás Maduro. And if you would like, I would also talk about very soon, maybe tomorrow, on Honduras and what is happening there. The fact that Trump is suggesting that the current prime minister or president of Honduras, which is Xiomara Castro, and I didn't know that she was actually is she the wife of Manuel Zelaya? And Zelaya was cooled and was deposed from office under the regime of Barack Hussein Obama and his Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in 2009. And that's a very interesting history that has been shoved under the rug. Because when we look at what took place there and the reforms that he would have engineered, that he would have implemented had he successfully completed his term, and the fact that the oligarchs in Honduras and in Washington did not like it, then they deposed him. They toppled his regime and sent him out of the country with only his pajamas on a one-way flight to Costa Rica. I want you to understand that this is the way how the United States operate. So when you talk about Trump, remember now that you have to go and study your history and understand that this has been a pattern ever since the Cold War, and even before the Cold War ended. But the United States, because you had two superpowers at that time, during the Cold War, you had the Soviet Union, you had the United States. She operated in the guise of democracy, as the writer here suggested, that she is doing things for the common good. So she has to spread freedom and democracy. And right now we're hearing she has to spread security. She has to protect. And Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, suggested that he is in the region. The region is close to the United States. So the United States has to protect the region. So in other words, somos niños. We are children, and they have to protect us. And that is what Pete Hegseth has intimated. Now, I want to listen to this because some of you also think that the United States is falling, right? And to some extent, that might be true. But falling takes years to accomplish, right? The Roman Empire, the pagan Roman Empire, lasted how many years? It lasted up to 168 AD, right? And then it was taken over, it morphed into an ecclesiastical Roman Empire, which was under the Roman Catholic papacy. Okay? Under the Roman Catholic papacy, right? It morphed, and it was there until 1260 years, or until 1798, right? It was there, lasted many years. So yes, it might be decaying, but you and I don't know how long it will last. Well, those of you who are keen on your Bible prophecy, you will know that it's going to last until the coming of Christ. So the United States is not going anywhere right now. Your freedoms will be impacted. Your freedoms will be curtailed, and that is what you have to understand. But in terms of its mighty iron-like empire, it is not going anywhere anytime soon, even though it's showing signs of falling and decaying. Right. Listen to what he's saying here. It's a very important point he's raising in this book, and in Nemesis, The Last Days of the American Republic. Please read that book, Nemesis, The Last Days of the American Republic. Notice that Chalmers Johnson has not suggested that it's the last days of the American Empire. He keeps on saying in his books that he has written, the last days of the American Republic. And republic there means the last days of America's freedom, or what you call democracy. Because nobody can say when the American Empire will be at its end. We can't say that. No man can say. And if they are telling you that, they can't say. And all of the people there online who are telling you that the United States Empire is falling and collapsing, okay, it's not going to happen anytime soon. Okay. Now, the most famous English language, I want you to listen, study, of ancient Rome is surely Edward Gibbon's The History of the Decline and the Fall of the Roman Empire. That is true. All historians refer to this book, Edward Gibbon's The History of the Decline and the Fall of the Roman Empire, published in the volumes between 1776 and 1788. He contended, among other things, that Christianity brought down Rome because it sapped the Roman spirit. It sapped the Roman spirit, was hostile to Mediterranean culture, and displaced Roman imperial pretensions with monasticism, monasticism, and contemplation. Monasticism, that's the pronunciation of the word, monasticism and contemplation. Now, monasticism came from the Roman Catholic Church. That's what it came into, right? So right now, the United States, as many people are suggesting, is exactly, they're saying, like Rome. And that is why former presidents have called the United States the new Rome. The Bible says it's an image to the beast, and a beast is a symbol of a kingdom, right? A kingdom, a nation. That is what a beast in Bible prophecy symbolizes. Okay? Now, they're suggesting here that that is what happened to the Roman Empire. It morphed from a pagan empire to a religious empire. Watch it. Not many people today would buy that interpretation. You know why? Because we have become irreligious. We have become an irreligious people. And as a result of that, we don't understand the history of the Western world. Not many people today would buy that interpretation, particularly since the collapse of the Roman Republic into dictatorship preceded by a century the spread of Christianity. Okay? So before it collapsed, Christianity had already spread, but it was a false spread of Christianity. It was Roman Catholicism. It was not the biblical Christianity as you think was there, or Christianity was wicked and all of that stuff. It was Roman Catholicism. That is what the papacy, the Roman Catholic papacy. Moreover, Emperor Constantine's conversion to Christianity in 312 AD, rather, right? In 312 AD, imposed the autocratic style of Rome on the church as much as it Christianized the Roman Empire. Now, remember that Constantine was an emperor and a pagan one too. But when he realized that the state, the pagan state, could not convert the Roman Republic into what they wanted the Roman Republic to be converted into, the United States wants to shift from democracy or a republican state to dictatorship, to imperialism, the people are not buying it. So what they will have to do, they will have to call on a false Christian religion to lead and to usher the United States into a system of, yeah, you know what happened? They're going to say that there's a moral decline. And we definitely need to bring the United States back into a system of decency. And we know that the United States lacks morals right now. It's an immoral country. So yes, there is some truth to that. The only thing, the catch to that, however, is that the right morality is not what they seek. What they seek is to control. And that is what you see. And that's why Trump has, and his the think tanks of the who have penned the Project 2025, they have penned it because they see, one, that the US must understand its prophetic role, according to them, its biblical prophetic role, and must accomplish that. That is what came out of the project for the new American century, the new manifest destiny, as it were, the new Monroe Doctrine, as it were. These are new iterations of the Monroe Doctrine of manifest destiny, right? So it's a long time the United States had its eyes on Venezuela. It was not just today under Trump. And they've been trying, but they have reached a crescendo right now where the United States is about to move in. So those of you who are taking the war lightly, it's not going to happen. And we hope it doesn't happen because we don't want to have the collateral damages that wars often, create and leave us with. We don't want that to happen. However, we don't want to be delusional, to think that when we look at history, that when the United States was threatening Iraq, threatening all these other countries, Syria, Yemen, Libya, that it was just doing so as empty threats. They threatened sometimes for years. Look at what happened in Iraq. And the sanctions that I understand that over 500 children died in Iraq in the 1990s because of economic sanctions that Bill Clinton had put on Iraq. Very important that you understand that. Okay? Economic sanctions. So yes, we can see a buildup, and it might not happen tomorrow. It might not happen next year. All right, but we understand in light of what we have read, in light of history, that should be our guide, that should be our compass to see where we're going. We understand that war is in the air, that the United States, and if you think, oh, it's a crazy white guy in the White House, it's a system that he represents. And he is only taking his marching orders from them, right? This is not his 100% will to do that. But he has people behind him, such as the Marco Rubios, and Marco Rubio has his superior, and the Pete Hegseth, and all of them, the Dan Keynes that went to Trinidad, they are bent on deposing the president of Nicolás Maduro. Okay? So you can laugh all you want to laugh and not understand that when the hurricane comes, and it's going to be a Category 5 hurricane, and sweep you into eternity, then you are going to understand that he who laughs last, he who laughs last, laughs the best. I don't want the US to laugh the best. And that is why I encourage you not to laugh, but to take the matter seriously, to unite. We ought to unite and say no to war, yes to peace. No a la guerra, sí a la paz. That is what we want in our world now. Very important that we understand. Very, very important that we begin to understand that this is going to leave serious scars on the region, particularly Trinidad and Tobago, which at the nearest point is only 7 miles from Venezuela. Okay? So I don't know what our people have in their thoughts, in their heads. Begin to read, begin to reflect, and I must encourage those of you who are anti-religious, because you have heard from our irreligious institutions at our universities that they have not, many of our professors don't even know what the Bible is. They say that they have read it, but they don't understand it. They haven't studied it. So how can you rely on them to teach you? But you have been so indoctrinated by them that you have not received from that book the treasured word of inspiration that could help you, along with history, to navigate this very treacherous path on which we are about to tread. And let me say something to you. When I look at all these podcasters on YouTube and I see how well you are flocking to people who are just telling you nonsense, okay, I am going to be sorry for you when you see that the very ground on which you stand is going to shake. It's going to shake, and it's going to shake you so hard that it is going to swallow you up, because you do not understand that. Stop following the crowd. Begin to read for yourselves. Devote hours to reading a book like Nemesis by Chalmers Johnson, because as he suggests, this is the enemy, and he says of revenge that is coming for the United States and the citizens. Okay? And you have to begin now to grapple with these things, to educate your children about these things, that these things are coming, and that the revenge that is on its way is going to be a serious one. Remember now that during the fall of Jerusalem, right? And when the Jews were mocking God, and God allowed their enemies to destroy them. Okay? allowed their enemies to destroy them, the fall of Jerusalem. And they were even eating, parents were eating their children, and children their parents. Okay? So we think we're living in this modern world and people are nice and we're just going to protest and change the policies of Washington. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We are in a spiritual warfare, and right now, no man is going to be able to stand up to this gigantic military apparatus that has been built by the United States of America. Only God. And we only can pray that God will intervene, but that sometimes God will have to also allow evil people, just like he did to Jerusalem, his own people, allow their enemies to eat them up because of the wickedness of their heart. And that is how sometimes God dispenses judgment. By using our enemies, the people who we don't like and the people who continue to exploit us, to destroy us. Because we won't listen. We won't listen. We're stiff-necked people. And we don't like to hear and to listen to sagacious counselings and reasonings. We want to listen to 1 million people. We're indoctrinated. We're going everywhere. And we don't know that we need to have a focused path. You need to get yourselves on the straight and narrow road. You see exactly what is happening. You don't know everything, because we will never know everything. We're humans. We're not omniscient. But you know enough that you know that this narrow way is on the path of truth. So as Nicolás Maduro, and he's not going to be the last, he's neither the first nor the last, that Washington will depose, but it seems now that we are at the end of his regime. It seems clearly that we are at the end of his regime. Now, whether you like it or not, it seems to me that the United States was sort of hesitant under Trump to just bomb, because they could do that. Just go there and start bombing. All right? Of course, it'll be hard, as we've said, to go in and to leave, because Venezuela is a very, mountainous terrain, and it has jungles and all of that stuff. Okay? But God has been holding back the winds of strife. But how long will he hold them back before a wicked and stiff-necked people? I don't think he's going to hold back too soon. Because you know what happened? God holds back the winds of strife so that people will hear the truth and respond to the truth. The sad thing is that oftentimes people reject the truth, and as a result of that, God allows the enemy to defeat and to destroy and to pillage and to plunder. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that you'd like, share, and subscribe. Like the videos. The videos can be shared with as many people on the platform. And this afternoon at 4 p.m., that's Atlantic Standard Time, join me and Mr. Pereira as we extrapolate on what is happening and what are the implications for Venezuela, for Trinidad, and for the region at large and the world. We need to have more critical discussions, and you will come. Please make sure you book your seat, right? And get there on time and bring everybody that we can have a scintillating discussion. See you in another one. Adios, hasta entonces.